my dad used to hose down the backyard in the winter to make an ice rink. And there's a tiny little hill, but when you're a kid, a tiny little hill is like, it's like the Swiss Alps. So I was going down. We would have this little toboggan hill, and then there was an ice rink at the bottom. That's one of the first things I remember.
There's a yellow brick house in London, Ontario, in a somewhat crappy neighborhood that we fixed up. It was painted pink, and we sandblasted the entire thing. All the brick was painted pink. We just completely changed it, built an arbor in the back, and just made the house our own. And so that house was the first memory of home. We had a bunch of different houses before then, but I don't remember them at all.
Back when I lived in Kentville, I remember I used to go out and play with the chickens, and I remember we had a barn next to the house, and the feeling of home was looking back at the house from our barn.
I had a pink carpet in Boston and some plastic daisies. That's my first memory, definitely.
My first memory of home, is that the question?
Yeah.
Would it always be when we came back and seeing that despite all that had happened to me, the four walls of our house had somehow not changed. And I would go to every room in the house just to make sure that everything was still the way it was, that plant life hadn't started to grow through the cracks in the wooden floor, and that, it wasn't like a post-apocalyptic sort of society like those movies where someone gets cryogenically frozen and wakes up in the future and all this ruin has come about. Like, home is being able to go away and come back and everything is waiting for you the way you left it. That's probably my earliest memory. Home sounds like hearing the noises of the world outside, hearing cars drive by and not paying any attention to it, and having it just sort of become part of the silence that creates a peaceful atmosphere.
To me, home sounds like the sound that this creek makes at my camp that you can hear at very many different places throughout the camp. I don't work there anymore, but I'll always remember the sound of it.
The guy who does Vinyl Cafe, Stuart McLean.
Yeah.
So home sounds like Stuart McLean. It's very comforting sound. I don't know. I'm used to hearing him every day when I'm either working on an essay or even when I was back in Mississauga, sitting with my family, reading because we're bookworms. So no matter what, Stuart McLean is playing in the background or listening to him in the background.
Sounds like somebody practicing drums through the wall.
Home in Victoria sounds a lot like birds chirping and a lot like the ocean. It's very similar in sound to Halifax, which is probably why I'm so comfortable in both cities. But yeah, the one thing that always reminds me of my home in Victoria is walking down the street and being able to hear birds in the trees.
This is obvious, but the door, you have to sort of, it's been so worn down over the years that you really have to cross that threshold into the house, and the door is this big wooden thing, and there's this first little, before you get into the hallway, there's this little vestibule with all the coats, and there's that feeling of that little enclosure that you're like, okay, I'm back. Plus, I don't know, just voices, or my mom's voice or anything like that. People.
I miss my family. I get little emails from my dad. It's my mom's birthday today, March 10th. And I get little emails from my dad kind of with life updates about my sister and my dog and my mom and him and where everybody's at in their life stages. And so that makes me feel really connected to them, but also distanced. And I think I definitely miss my family the most.
I guess for me, home is where love is. If, I'm at home with my family, then I just feel like I'm surrounded by love. And if I'm here in Halifax with my friends, then I also feel the same way, just differently.
Probably the exact moment was when we played in Ben Kaplan's living room as New Providence, and we fit all of us into this, almost friction fit us into this tiny living room. It's not any bigger than the room we're in right now. And New Providence was an 11-person band, and there were probably 50 people sitting around us. And I remember at one point, like, when I would switch instruments, I would literally have to just give it to someone who was in the audience to hold because I didn't have any room to put it down. And that was when I first felt home, when I was, like, in that sort of musical jigsaw.
That it's a very important spot, and you might not always have an exact home in your life, but it's a good thing to find.
I think that it is really heartbreaking to think about people not having a home and like not having somewhere that they can go and just feel accepted and loved and everything.
Home is somewhere that you don't have to escape from. It's somewhere that you never feel like you want to run away, and it's something that you don't have to recover from either.
It felt pretty empty and confusing. It felt pretty groundless. Yeah, I didn't have anything to rest all of my, I don't know, explorations of the world on. I didn't have anything to rest my, I don't know, the new things I was learning, the new general confusion with the world. There was no, like, you know, there's no common zero.
It was the first time that I was really conscious of the fact that what I have in Halifax is really special. This community can't really be replicated in a city like Toronto.
When I got back, most of my friends that I was close with had either moved away or kind of forgotten about me. And so I was very much on my own. I was living on my own. I was working in a new place, and it just felt extremely lonely. It didn't feel like I belonged.
"5 years down the road, where's home going to be?"
Well, home will always be Victoria, and home will always be where my friends in Halifax end up, but my home, I'm hoping, will be New York City.
I don't know. I don't know. I think my parents are just actually about to move in the next 2 years out of my original house, and I've thought about that and what it means, and I mean, it's not really a big deal, but I don't think I'll see home as their condo, you know? I think I'll see home as the people I choose to live my life with.
For me, it will be where my kids, if I have them by then, will somewhere where they find home.
Well, I hope to be traveling, actually. So, perhaps my backpack.
Yeah, who knows? It's a completely open book.